EC6402 Communication Theory, Unit 1 Amplitude Modulation. Define modulation. Modulation is a process by which some characteristics of high-frequency carrier signal is varied in accordance with the instantaneous value of the modulating signal. What are the types of analog modulation? Amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, phase modulation. Write the application of Hilbert transform. For generation of SSB signal, for designing of minimum phase type filter, for representation of bandpass signal. What are the degrees of modulation? Under modulation, critical modulation, over modulation. What is the need for modulation? Need for modulation, ease of transmission, multiplexing, reduced noise, narrow bandwidth, frequency assignment, reduce the equipment limitation. Give the classification of modulation. There are two types of modulation. They are analog modulation, digital modulation. Analog modulation is classified as follows: continuous wave modulation, pulse modulation. Continuous wave modulation is classified as amplitude modulation, double side band suppressed carrier, single side band suppressed carrier, vestigial side band suppressed carrier. Angle modulation, frequency modulation, phase modulation. Pulse modulation is classified as follows: pulse amplitude modulation, pulse position modulation, pulse duration modulation, pulse code modulation. Digital modulation is classified as follows: amplitude shift keying, phase shift keying, frequency shift keying. What is the difference between high level and low level modulation? In high level modulation, the modulator amplifier operates at high power level and deliver power directly to the antenna. In low level modulation, the modulator amplifier perform modulation at relatively low power level. The modulated signal is then amplified to high power level by class P power amplifier. The amplifier feed power to antenna. Define reduction. Reduction is the process of extracting modulating signal from the modulated carrier. Different type of reductors are used for different types of modulation. Define amplitude modulation. In amplitude modulation, the amplitude of a carrier signal is varied according to variation in amplitude of modulating signal. The AM signal can be represented mathematically as EAM is equal to EC plus EM sin omega MT into sin omega CT, and modulation index is given as M is equal to EM EC. What is super heterodyne receiver? The super heterodyne receiver converts all incoming RF frequency to a fixed lower frequency called intermediate frequency IF. This IF is then amplitude and reduced to get the original signal.
Please subscribe our channel for more videos and educational contents.